Okay, so let's unpack this article about living in Kuala Lumpur that you sent our way.
Yeah, this one's from moveandstay.com.
Right, moveandstay.com. And they've been around for, what, over 25 years?
That's right. Over 25 years helping business folks and expats find places across Asia. Day, week, month. They cover short and longer stays.
So quite a bit of experience there, especially in a place like KL that changes so fast.
Exactly. That kind of longevity suggests they've seen a lot, and hopefully the insights are, pretty grounded.
Okay. So our mission today is to do a deep dive into this specific article, Best Areas for Expats in Kuala Lumpur, what you need to know.
Right.
We're going to really dig into what it says, pull out the key neighborhoods, what makes them tick, basically help you figure out the KL landscape if you're thinking of moving or staying there.
And KL isn't simple, is it? It's not one size fits all.
Not at all.
And this article seems to get that. It looks like it covers the whole spectrum: busy city center, quieter suburbs, family spots with schools, places for foodies, green areas.
Yeah, finding your own corner of KL. So where does the article kick things off? What's the first big area it highlights?
Well, it jumps right into the popular expat zones. And first up, no surprise really, is Mont Kiara.
Ah, Mont Kiara. Yeah, you hear that name a lot. The expat bubble, some call it. What does the source say makes it so popular?
It seems to be the sheer concentration of international folks living there. The article points out this creates a built-in community, makes it easier to connect, find people with similar experiences.
Right, so it's less about just finding an apartment and more about plugging into a network straight away.
Exactly. It mentions it's full of condos and, crucially, international schools. That's a massive draw for families.
Okay.
Plus, all the amenities cater to that international crowd, cafes, restaurants, that sort of thing. It does note it's a bit further from the absolute dead center of the city.
Which might be a plus for some. A bit quieter.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
More residential, less hectic than downtown KL.
Okay, so Mont Kiara. Community, schools, international vibe, maybe a slightly calmer pace. Got it. Where next?
Then it talks about Bangsar. This one's painted as maybe a bit more trendy, affluent, for expats who want to be nearer the action than Mont Kiara, but maybe not right in the thick of it.
Closer in, but still its own scene.
Yeah. It's got a mix of houses and busy streets. The article highlights the social scene, lots of cafes, bars, restaurants, very lively.
Mm-hmm.
And importantly, it mentions good public transport links to the city center. Commuting is a big deal in KL, so that's a key point.
Definitely. Good connectivity is gold.
And it adds an interesting point while it's generally seen as affluent. If you look around the edges of Bangsar, you might find some housing options that are a bit more budget-friendly.
Ah, okay. Some wiggle room, potentially. So Bangsar sounds like trendy, social, well-connected, maybe some price variation. What's the third big popular area the article mentions?
That would be Damansara. This is described more as a large township.
Mm-hmm.
And the key thing here seems to be generally more moderate pricing compared to Mont Kiara or Bangsar.
Okay, so affordability is more front and center with Damansara.
Seems like it. Highlighted as really good for families. Mentions lots of schools and parks.
Key family things.
Absolutely. It's further out than Bangsar, yes, but the article says it's still pretty accessible by car or public transport. And you get different types of housing apartments, but also landed properties.
Landed properties like houses with yards.
Exactly. Individual houses, your own plot of land. Offers a different kind of living space than a condo tower.
That's useful to know.
Yeah.
So Damansara, value-focused, family-friendly with schools and parks, decent access. It feels like the article is framing these top spots for different kinds of expats.
Definitely. And it flat out says, there's no single right area. It totally depends on your preferences, your budget, lifestyle, kids. You got to explore.
Solid advice. But okay, what if you don't want further out or just moderately priced? What if you want the absolute buzz? Does the article cover living right in the city center?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It talks about the city center KLCC area as having this real pull.
Yeah.
Because you are just immersed in everything. The core energy.
What's the vibe described as?
Just buzzing, nonstop, day and night. It attracts locals, expats, everyone drawn to that fast pace. Always something going on, new restaurants, markets, events. If you thrive on that constant activity, that's where the article points you.
Sounds intense.
It also mentions Ampang specifically. That's interesting. Suggests it as an option if you want a more suburban feel but still want to be really close to KLCC, the main hub.
So, near the buzz, but maybe not living directly on top of the loudest nightclub.
That seems to be the idea with Ampang. But for living right in the center, the huge advantage is accessibility.
Right.
Public transport is everywhere, connects you all over. You can walk to offices, malls, entertainment. The article even mentions KL Central, the main transport hub, as a great spot for finding affordable, stylish condos precisely because of those amazing transport links.
Makes sense. Accessibility is like a superpower there. What about like culture, being immersed?
Well, living centrally puts you right there, close to the big landmarks, museums, galleries, places where you can easily bump into local traditions, food festivals, cultural stuff. It's probably the quickest way to feel plugged into the city's identity.
But it can't be perfect, right? The downside.
The article is pretty balanced. It acknowledges the challenges,
Mm.
definitely more noise, way more traffic, and usually higher living costs than out in the suburbs.
Okay.
So it really frames it as a trade-off. You need to weigh the energy and convenience against your tolerance for hustle and, well, your budget.
Right. So city center, high energy, amazing access, cultural immersion, but brace for noise, traffic, and potentially higher rent. You mentioned schools earlier for Mont Kiara and Damansara. Does the article focus more on the family angle?
It does, yeah. There's a whole section on family-friendly spots. Really hammers home how important schools, parks, and community are for expat families settling in.
Which specific schools does it name drop?
It mentions Mont Kiara International School and Garden International School as examples of the big-name international schools you find. It specifically ties them to areas like Mont Kiara again, but also brings up Disa Park City.
Diesel Park City. Okay. Another one.
Yeah, and these schools offer, the IB or British curriculum, which lots of expat parents look for, familiar systems, easier transitions for the kids. The article points out that living near the school just makes the daily grind easier and helps kids settle.
Makes total sense. So Disa Park City is another key family spot. And parks. You mentioned parks.
Crucial. Disa Park City gets highlighted specifically because it apparently has lots of parks and playgrounds right within the area. It singles out Disa Park City's Central Park mentions landscaping, walking trails, a lake. Sounds nice.
It does.
Bangzar also gets another mention here for having parks nearby.
And didn't the article list a couple of big city parks too?
Yeah, quickly mention KLCC Park, right in the center, has a playground, wading pool, and Titiwangsa Lake Gardens, much larger, lake, cycling, recreation stuff, both shown as popular escapes for families or anyone needing some green.
Good to know there are those bigger green lungs, even in a dense city.
And the article doesn't just stop at facilities. It talks about community support, how vital that is when you move your family somewhere new.
Ah, the social side.
Exactly. Areas like Mont Kiara and Desa Park City are apparently known for active expat communities. They organize things, create networks, makes it easier for families to connect, get advice, find that support system.
Yeah, that feeling of belonging, finding your people when you're far from home, that must be huge. The article's right to emphasize that.
It really can make or break the experience, can't it? So yeah, for families, schools, parks, community, those seem to be the key takeaways from the source.
Okay, so we've hit the main expat hubs, the city center, the family focus. What about affordability? Not everyone's on a massive expat package. Does the article point to more budget-friendly areas?
Definitely. It has a specific section on affordable living. Makes it clear KL isn't only about high-end places.
Good. So where does it suggest looking if you need to watch the ringgit?
First one up is Petaling Jaya, or PJ. It's technically just outside KL proper, more suburban. The big plus, generally lower rents than central KL.
Okay.
It's described as like a mature area, well-developed, got its own amenities, but still decent connections back into KL by public transport.
So PJ, a bit more space, potentially cheaper rent, but still connected. Makes sense. What else?
Cyberjaya. This one's different. It's a planned city, built as a tech hub.
Right. Malaysia's Silicon Valley, sort of.
Kind of, and because it's further out, the article says you can often find really good deals on modern apartments. Quieter than KL, apparently, but has its own thing going on, especially if you work in tech. Also gets a nod for having green spaces.
Interesting. Cyberjaya. Modern, techy, affordable, but definitely a commute if you work in KLCC. Does it mention going even further out for savings?
Briefly, yeah. It mentions places like Rawang or Sungai Buloh. Suggests you'll find even lower rents there.
But there's a catch, I assume.
The trade-off, according to the article, is you'll likely need a car for pretty much everything, and your commute into the city will be longer. It also hints these areas might offer a more local Malaysian living experience, less of the expat concentration.
Okay, so the affordability equation often involves balancing cost against commute time and maybe being further from those expat networks. The article keeps coming back to that personal balance, doesn't it?
It's the main theme, really. Your priorities shape your best choice.
So moving beyond where you live, What about the fun stuff? The energy. Where does the article point for dining and entertainment?
KL definitely has a buzz, and the article highlights a few key spots. Bukit Bintang gets a big shout-out, calls it the Times Square of Kuala Lumpur.
Wow, okay. Times Square. What does that translate to in KL?
According to the source, it means massive shopping malls. Pavilion KL, Lot 10, Sungiwang Plaza. Incredible street food, especially Jalan Alor nearby, and loads of rooftop bars, clubs, nightlife.
Sounds intense.
Yeah, described as a sensory overload in the best way possible. Basically, if you want guaranteed energy and excitement, that's the spot.
Got it. The high-octane hub, and Jalen Olor got a specific mention.
Oh, absolutely. Highlighted as the place for street food. The article says it just comes alive every night. Hawker stalls everywhere, selling everything you can imagine, grilled seafood, noodles, you name it. Atmosphere is electric, apparently.
Yeah.
A real food immersion.
Okay, that's a definite pin on the map for any foodie moving there. What about Chinatown?
Chinatown gets mentioned for a different vibe. More history, culture, place to just wander, soak it all in. Narrower streets, unique food finds, souvenirs, temples. Peddling street market is mentioned for bargain hunting. And it says you should try local foods like Hokkien mee there.
So different flavors of fun. Bukit Bintang for modern buzz, Jalen Ulur for street food chaos, Chinatown for history and wandering. Covers a lot of bases.
Yeah, something for whatever mood you're in.
We touched on green spaces before Desa Park City, KLCC Park. Does the article offer more on finding nature near the city?
It does, yeah. It has a section on green spaces, framing them as essential escapes from the city buzz. Yampang pops up again.
The place near KLCC.
Right. Highlighted this time for being relatively green and close to the Ampang Recreational Forest. Good for hiking, apparently.
Hiking near the city center. That's pretty cool.
Titiwangsa gets another mention, too, reminding us about the big Titiwangsa Lake Gardens. Popular spot, scenic views, reinforces it as a key green space in the city.
And wasn't there that unique forest park right downtown?
Yes, the KL Eco Park, or KL Forest Eco Park. The article points out it's actually one of Malaysia's oldest forest reserves, and it has a canopy walk.
A canopy walk downtown.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Walking through a rainforest canopy with the KL Tower right there. Talk about blending nature and city.
That's wild. Rainforest meets skyscraper.
The article specifically connects these green spots to well-being, doesn't it? Reducing stress, quality of life.
Yeah, it brings it back to the practical benefit. Why having access to nature actually matters for living well in a busy place like KL.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, final crucial piece. Safety. Always a big question when moving somewhere new. What's the article's take on safety in KL for expats?
It tackles it directly. It says KL is generally considered safe, but like any big city anywhere, you need to be aware.
Standard big city advice, then. What specific things does it mention being aware of?
It says serious crime against expats is rare, which is reassuring. But petty crime, bag snatching, pickpocketing that can happen, especially in crowded touristy spots.
Okay.
So the advice is pretty standard. Keep an eye on your stuff, be aware of your surroundings. It also suggests maybe researching specific neighborhoods as crime rates could vary. Checking local reports for busy areas might be smart.
So common sense stuff. Mostly, does it mention anything about, like, community safety initiatives? Yeah, it mentions things like neighborhood watch programs or maybe increased police presence in some areas. It says getting involved, if possible, can be good for safety and for connecting with neighbors.
Makes sense. And tapping into the expat grapevine.
Strongly recommended by the article. Talk to people already living there, get their firsthand experiences, practical safety tips, online forums, social media groups, good places for that kind of real-world info.
Right.
It emphasizes that experiences vary, and you should always trust your gut feeling about a situation.
And it wraps up with some basic tips, right? Like avoiding poorly lit areas alone late at night, keeping valuables hidden.
Yeah, being careful on crowded public transport. Maybe learning a few basic Malay phrases for emergencies. Just solid, practical advice from the source to help you feel a bit more secure.
Okay, so wow, we've really covered a lot based on this moveandstay.com article. From those big expat hubs like Mont Kiara and Bangsar, the energy of the city center, family spots like Damansara and Desa Park City with their schools and parks.
To the budget options like PJ and Cyberjaya, the food and nightlife in Bukit Bintang and Jalan Alor, even those surprising green escapes like the Eco Park and Titiwangsa.
It really paints a picture of just how varied KL is. There are options for so many different lifestyles.
Definitely.
And that core message from the article coming from moveandstay.com, with their 25-plus years in the region, seems really clear. Finding your right spot in KL isn't about the single best area. It's about the best fit for you.
Exactly. It's personal, depends on your budget, what kind of life you want, what your absolute must-haves are.
Yeah.
Exploring is key.
And using a resource like this article, grounded in all that experience, helping people settle in Asia, is such a valuable starting point for that exploration, isn't it?
It gives you a map, helps you know where to even begin looking.
Settling into a city like KL is a huge adventure, no doubt. But having this kind of detailed breakdown of what different areas offer, it can really help you get your bearings faster, feel more at home quicker.
It definitely smooths out that initial, sometimes overwhelming transition period.
So, thinking about everything we've discussed from this article, the community feel of Mont Kiara, the buzz of Bukit Bintang, the affordability further out, the green spaces, the convenience of the center, here's a thought for you listening. If you had to pick one single factor right now, based just on what this article highlights, what would you prioritize first in choosing a place in Kuala Lumpur? Would it be community, access, cost, greenery, something else?
It's a tough question. It really forces you to think about trade-offs, doesn't it? Which is exactly what you have to do when you move to any complex, dynamic city. It's a great starting point for figuring out what your ideal KL life might actually look like.